have my official place to be able to say I'm good to do this without part of it being like, oh, that's just another black kid about to say something.
I'm understanding that African Americans, I feel like we have to push and go the extra mile to even be acknowledged.
It's always either we're 200 years too late, 20 years too late, 2 minutes too late, 2.5 years late.
I just don't let all of the negativity of it infect me as much as I let it motivate me.
Just like, So first, I just wanted to thank Reggie, Justin, Quintin, and DJ for spending time this morning talking about your experiences with us. And so first, I want to give y'all an opportunity to introduce yourselves and tell us your name, your position, how long you've been in higher ed, campus recreation, and how long you've been at UNC. And then also, with that, if you don't mind just telling us, what does Juneteenth mean to you?
All right, so my name is DJ Scott. I am the fitness and wellness coordinator here at UNC. I've been in campus rec since I was in undergrad as a student, but professionally, I've only been here for just less than a year. I think the next question was, what does Juneteenth mean to me at that point? Mm-hmm. To make it short, I would say Juneteenth means to me a way to remember everything that got me to where I am right now. Make sure I just don't forget where I came from.
Hey everyone, my name is Quintin. I'm the sport programs coordinator here at UNC. I've been working for campus recreation for a good 7 to 8 years, similar to DJ, started in undergrad, and I've been at Carolina less than a year. For Juneteenth, what it means to me, it's kind of like two parts. One is remembering and acknowledging our African American ancestors for what they did to fight for the end of slavery, officially June 19th, 1865. And then the second part for us to celebrate our Blackness and our culture, to remember who we are and what we can be for the future.
I'm Justin Ford. I'm the assistant director for sport programs, and I have been at UNC since 2003, so that puts me at 18 years? 18 years as a professional. And what Juneteenth means to me is a way of celebrating Blackness, but also remembering that we still have a long way to go.
Hello everyone, my name is Reggie Hinton. I am the Associate Director of Facilities and Operations, and I have been working with campus recreation for the past 18 years. Juneteenth for me represents a lot of things. I definitely agree with all of you gentlemen, and the remembering and the legacy piece of honoring what our ancestors have done previously. But I thought about it more this morning, and something that came to me was, first of all, implementation. I think it's important to acknowledge that Juneteenth needed to happen because there was a 2-year span after the Emancipation Proclamation where there was no action in the United States to ensure that the slaves were indeed able to appreciate the freedom that they had received. So the first piece is implementation and thinking about just how long it takes for change to be enacted, but then two is the involvement and seeing that even then it took more than African Americans for African Americans to receive the freedoms that they rightly deserve. And I think the same is true now. We tend to bear the burden of stating what we need, etc., but it takes way more than just the African American community to bring those rights to African Americans more widespread.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's great, y'all.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just thought about something that if you think about, Reggie mentioned something about how it took 2 years for the Emancipation Proclamation, since it came from President Lincoln and all the way down to Galveston, Texas. If you think about just out through American history about how change is made, it's always either we're 200 years too late, 20 years too late, 2 minutes too late, 2.5 years late, 9 minutes too late. It just seems like stuff isn't always in the moment, and we're always trying to play catch up. Seems like we've been playing catch up since 1865, 1619.
No, that's a great point. I think that acknowledges a lot of the more recent history too, that that we've had to confront this, especially this past year with George Floyd and stuff. You mentioned the 9 minutes too late, so that's what comes to mind when you mentioned that. I wanted to also ask y'all, how has Juneteenth evolved for you over time? So thinking back to your younger days, for some of you it's a lot of younger days. I'm just like, no. If you can think back to your younger days, kind of how has Juneteenth and the holiday evolved over time for you?
Since DJ went first last, I'll start this one. Honestly, Tori, growing up, I didn't really celebrate Juneteenth. So it's been more of a recent celebration for me. But I was also very aware of African American pioneers. It was never just a Black History Month in the community I was raised in. It was always not only the stories that made headlines, but even the local heroes and hearing their stories. So I would say carrying that care and concern about what the predecessors had done, it's kind of been embedded within me. So then finding out about Juneteenth and the past several years has only enhanced my willingness to continue to be someone that the future generations aspire to be like. So I think taking moments like these to acknowledge it will continue to be part of what I do personally, as well as my family and then those that come after me.
Well, I mean, being I guess somewhat of an elder statesman next to Reggie and stuff, just I didn't really celebrate it growing up, probably just because of the lack of education and awareness of the actual date. Growing up in North Carolina and my parents being from Mississippi, and then them going through the civil rights movement, and obviously there was a lot of Black education, Black history during my time growing up as from elementary school all the way through high school, and even getting more involved in some of the Black history movements and education in college and stuff. But just really thinking about like what it means and the actual date, and like it is a celebration, but it's also somewhat of a reflection that that really. I can be honest, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation 5 years ago, and definitely not 10 years ago, because there just wasn't the awareness. I guess you're thinking about, like I mentioned 2 minutes ago, we were just like 10 years too late, 2 years too late. So we're just still trying to play catch up and stuff. So, but definitely want to learn more about it and to be more involved and appreciate it more.
For me, it's very similar to Reggie and Justin. I did not celebrate Juneteenth growing up as a child. My parents didn't talk about it. I was somebody who brought it up as I started to learn about Juneteenth in college when I took African American history courses. Thank you to Joanne Woodard for her knowledge. I will say, evolving, I do remember as a child hearing songs of Jubilee growing up in a church, and they would talk about the end of slavery and captive is set free, something to hear African Americans really breaking off those chains and being free and having hope and a promise for a better life. And I'll also say I was reading about a podcast that was interviewing Annette Gordon-Reed, who is a law professor at Harvard. And she was talking about growing up in Texas, how that history is different from somebody who was not born in Texas and celebrating Juneteenth. And she grew up and building that foundation. And I've talked to my wife about when we start our family with kids, we're going to celebrate Juneteenth and continue that history as we evolve going forward with Juneteenth.
Yes, for me, pretty much the same thing. For the longest time, it wasn't necessarily like a celebration or even a really understanding what that date had meant for me and my family. It was typically centered around just family history for me when I was growing up. I had a lot of family history, especially from where we're from, and what I could learn from in that aspect, but never specifically Juneteenth and how that played a role. In high school, I'd say it's probably the first time I really started to hear about it and have a better understanding of it. But even then, it wasn't like a holiday, so it was something that I was just like, okay, I know about it, but what do I do with this? It wasn't until recently, like I think everybody else is saying here, where it started to be like, oh no, we really need to start talking about this more, celebrating this, and even having conversations like this, where we can also say, like, it's okay if you didn't know. A lot of us didn't know, but we're still here to celebrate it now. Regardless if it's too late or not, we're still going to try to make the most of it while we have it. And I think the transition for me to where it is specifically for now is I have a daughter, and I want her to know as much about this information as possible. So kind of starting off the next generation in that better foot for her.
Yeah, y'all all made some great points, and I think that's probably relatable to a lot of people. I want to also go back to something that a few of you mentioned a little bit ago about celebrating Blackness as part of Juneteenth. So can you tell me a little bit more about kind of the burden of the Black experience and how you have to carry that every day with the Black experience in the United States of America, but leveraging celebrating Blackness and being able to kind of still present your best self and make positive impact here. So can you tell us a little bit about how you kind of have to balance the two of celebrating Blackness while also carrying the burden of the Black experience?
Yeah, I can start off.
Tough question, Tori.
Yeah, it is a tough question, and I probably will have more to say, but I can kind of start it off here. I would say specifically for me, I kind of feel like it's probably not as difficult now as it was when you guys are coming into the professional field, just from where I kind of see things. I still think there is a lot to like, how do I come to work? Is my hair and stuff professional? Is like how I dress okay? I mean, I'm in joggers right now, so it all kind of works into some of these play. But I feel like it's definitely a balance because you are always aware, and I think that's part of the burden that a lot of Black men don't talk about or people don't have in these circles is like, I come to work, I'm here to do my job, but I also have to know, like, are people looking at me because of just how I look? Are they kind of judging me when I come into this conference because of how I look? It's always in the back of your head, and you never really know if that's the case with one person or the next because you don't know people until you really start to get to know them. But it is always kind of in the back of my head whenever I'm doing these professional meetings, talks, whatever. Do I have my official place to be able to say I'm good to do this without part of it being like, oh, that's just another Black kid about to say something.
Nice. Like I said, it's a tough question. I'll definitely just add, say for myself, I really describe what's going on in African American history and what our ancestors have done in the past. It's a mountain that we continue to climb. I know Justin said we have so much more to go. I mean, as far as the distance and improvement, and I'll say for myself professionally, it's going the extra mile and giving 110%. Understanding that African Americans, I feel like we have to push and go the extra mile to be acknowledged, and not settle for mediocrity or anything like that. So from my take, is continue to do the best that I can going forward, and understand like someone like Frederick Douglass, who created the first anti-slavery newspaper, just for his work as an activist and going forward and pushing for the end of slavery through his writing and what he did as a kid growing up in slavery and reading and educating the African Americans and never giving up. And that's what it shows for me as African American now. I continue to give 110%, continue to educate myself and empower those that are coming up, the next generation.
I'm lost for words after that question.
It's not an easy question. It's not an easy question.
Eloquently put that together. DJ, you did make a good point about, like, I guess when myself and Reggie started, but I'm just thinking about just thinking back to, like, you know, elementary school and middle school, and then there's just like, you feel like that you have to fit into so many different boxes that sometimes some of those boxes overlap, but you feel like that sometimes you have to toe the line, and then you have to meet so many expectations that you set for yourself, but also expectations that that are set for you. You're like, well, I don't really want to do that, but I guess I have to do that because this is what I'm expected to do. And then I really haven't gotten to a point of like feeling like really comfortable of like who I am until I'm much older, when I should have been comfortable with who I am as far as like being an adult. But like, what does it really mean to be an adult as a black man in America, growing up in the 90s and 2000s, and then like shifting into like the late, in the early 2021. They're all kind of overlapping, but like there's been so much of a shift. And is it really acceptance, or is it really just kind of I don't know. There's so many things that are going on in my mind right now that I'm just thinking about like what we're doing right now. We all appreciate it, but like when people are watching this video or they're thinking about, man, this is really great, it's like, is it a fad? Is it just something that you just want to latch onto because it's like this is the thing to do right now? Mm-hmm. Or is it really like, are people really going to do the work and be involved and then incorporate this into their into their lives? Like, yes, we need to continue to do this, not because it's like, oh, this is just a cool thing to do right now. So that's, I know I've gone on like, it's just.
Would you mind like going more into like what you really mean when you say like toeing the line, like, and kind of what that was like for you?
Yeah, I guess just really like growing up I went to private school and like K through 5th grade, and then like being like one of like 5 black people in the entire school, or like being the only black person in your class for like 5 or 6 years, and like going into a community, or like, okay, you're in school, and then like, okay, you're the only black person, so you don't have anybody to relate to. But then like spending time with family and friends, and then like being around like just a totally different group, and then learning how to pretty much adapt to so many different experiences, and then growing up and not really knowing like, okay, is this what I'm supposed to do? But I feel like I have to do it this way so I can be accepted. Then I need to move into this area so I can be accepted. And then like going from, I know this is all personal, but now I'm rambling, but like just thinking, going from like the public school experience where it was like a big culture shock, and then moving into that, and then even going to undergrad as at a PWI, and then like realizing that there's still like little small groups, even though the group is bigger, but then still trying to stay in like total line with that, because like you want to fit in, but you also have to really like, you got to play the game.
Okay.
And then,
that's kind of what I thought you were like.
You got to navigate. Even now at the working here for the last 18 years, you still got like little pockets and stuff. And then even though we try to like separate our the work-life balance, but you still have to like toe the line and still, I wouldn't say, you still got to play the game, but like there's a lot more.
Yeah, if I could add anything to what I said, I'd add that piece right there. Like learning how to play the game became a part of everything.
Wow. Tori, I'm gonna come back to your question, but man, thank you for sharing that. Justin, you asked balancing being a black man in America, but then forgot what's the second piece of it.
Just about celebrating Blackness at the same
and to celebrate
yeah.
Blackness at the same time. And I think the way I maintain balance personally is this statement: knowledge is power. Knowing who I am and choosing to embrace that at all times and never get infected by stereotypes. I've seen being a black male, specifically in America, evolve. But I think one thing my parents were instrumental in being an adult is my responsibility to carry out that mindset. It's always reinforcing who I was. And this is why I mean knowledge is power. The first thing they emphasized to me was that I was a person capable of whatever I put my mind to. And I just so happen to have black skin, right? And I think if you could get back to who we are at our core, which is people first, who just happen to have different pigments of skin, I think it's a lot more manageable to understand that there is a game to be played, but who I am is based on the person that I have the capacity to be, and not because I'm necessarily trying to fit into some stereotype or avoid some stereotype that has been set for me. So I love it. I love the challenge of it. I love to walk in spaces, be a black male, but know what I carry and sit at the table and talk like I have since, be informed about things I say, and just leave an impression on people. And I'm not thinking about the fact that I am the only black person in the room. I'm really bringing to the table who I am. And I think moving forward, that's something we have to continue to do. I mean, when I think about what Quintin said about Frederick Douglass, and I think about so many other African American pioneers, the who they were at the core is what really drove them to keep pushing until they received the fair treatment that they knew they deserved, right? It's just being literate and being able to read the Constitution and know, hey man, these inalienable rights should be ours. And then from there, creating the movement that led to all of the freedoms we currently enjoy. So I hope that doesn't sound like I'm out of touch with the African American experience, because I'm not. I mean, I'm very aware of it. I just don't let all of the negativity of it infect me as much as I let it motivate me.
Yeah.